So I figured I should introduce how I know Jacob, because actually Bron and I have never talked before, and you guys have never talked to Emma before. So I first met Jacob in Sayus in France on a sport climbing trip, and yeah, straight away you kind of struck me as a bit of a crazy guy, and I explained. You were climbing this like 7A plus route, and I think I was belaying or someone else was, and the whole time that you were climbing it, you were talking to yourself. I don't know if you still do that now, but you're like, yeah, right hand goes here, crimp there, left foot there, and it was like really beautifully smooth climbing, but also at the same time, you looked a bit insane.
Well, thank you very much. Was that the same summer in Sayus where we had the giant explosion at the campfire?
Yeah.
Squib got everyone to throw 2 handfuls of flour into the fire, and then everyone got like singed eyebrows and stuff. It was great. It's on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I was wondering if to say about that, and that was actually the evening where my friend ended up shitting himself. So.
Oh yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for me. That was like my first like solo climbing trip.
Okay.
I think. But I kind of like.
So what year do you think we're talking about right now?
I think that was 2011. So that would have been like 9 years ago. And I think I kind of like finished university and was like, I'm gonna go climbing now.
Yeah. So yeah. And the other thing that I sort of have in my memory from that is, I think you just started your PhD, I guess. But
yeah.
So you were trying to explain your PhD in mathematics to me, which was something to do with set theory or something, you were trying to explain something to me, and it was really complicated, and yeah, I was intrigued, but also. Yeah. The other really crazy thing you were doing was juggling and slacklining at the same time. Which is incredibly impressive.
I don't have a slackline right here or anything to juggle. Phones. Yeah, I could juggle phones. I got a water bottle. Yeah, I have a PhD in infinity. Oh, now. I didn't then. I was starting a PhD in infinity then. Wow. Now I have a PhD in infinity.
So we hope all the question and answers today have to do with questions about infinity.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have some good answers.
Yeah. Yeah, we did an enormocast, like the podcast with Chris Kalous, and the first like half an hour of the podcast is just like nothing to do with climbing and entirely questions about infinity. So I'm ready.
That does sound pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, I one of the things I wanted to say was, so you seem to have like a habit of taking on some pretty like crazy challenges, and now that you're talking about infinity, I don't think you can do well. There's a delay. You seem to have a habit of doing also like really long sport routes and crazy challenges. So one thing that not long after you were in Sayus, I guess, you did totally free at Malum, which is this 8B plus, or 8B or something, which is like 80
I think it's 8B.
You also made this one giant leap for mankind, the longest.
Oh yeah.
And these
wow,
are like,
you remember all these things.
He's done his research.
Yeah, this was all a while ago.
So I was like, yeah, Jacob is a fucking crazy guy that seems like insane challenges. And
yeah,
what stuck out to me from that was that like both of those things, they're pretty like obscure, right? I mean, they're big challenges, like totally free. Nobody really does it, you know. I mean, there's a lot of people operating at that like 8B-ish level. But at the same time, nobody really was doing totally free. So, yeah, it's like this. It seems like a bit of a crazy thing that you always want to do, and you always seem to be attracted to like very left field challenges. Is that?
Yeah. I think I've got like a super obsessive personality, and so like I get an idea in my mind, and like I just can't put it down. And it's like, yeah, usually like I kind of like the ones that are like slightly unusual.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I got into doing really, really long pitches, and it's actually like not really that practical. Like when you first think of it, you're like, oh yeah, it'll be great. Like I just get to do more climbing. But actually when it comes down to it, like climbing 70, 80 meter pitches involves like a lot of logistics.
Yeah.
So I remember like trying to climb totally free. I was like having to rope in 2 belayers, and I would like climb the first half and then like get to this like rest and clip in with a sling, but like not weight it, and then have like a different friend like run around and toss me a rope and like start belaying me from halfway up to like keep the rope drag minimal.
And the rope weight, I guess.
And the
too.
rope weight, yeah.
Climbing 80 meters, you've got like 10 kilos of rope trailing behind you, pretty much.
Yeah. An 80-meter rope is like quite heavy.
Yeah.
Especially
And I did fall off one time on that route with like my hands on the lip of Malham Cove, which was unfortunate.
So you top out on the top. I wonder. Maybe,
Yeah.
I guess we should have dig out a picture of Malham Cove, perhaps.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Whoa.
We collected some photos together, but
Yeah.
I don't think we went back 9 years. We went back about 7 years.
I kind of like abandoned the UK about 4 or 5 years ago, and haven't done an awful lot of climbing in the UK.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to. I kind of have a list of routes I'd like to go back to at some point, but
Okay.
There's also a pretty
It's just
big
the way it's
list of
been.
routes in America.
yeah. I chased Bron to Canada, and then now I live there.
Yeah. So now that we've sort of got onto that, then, like, Bron, you started climbing like relatively recently, even. I mean,
I don't know if I can claim the recent climbing yet anymore. I think it was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I started 7 years ago. So that's when Jacob and I started dating.
So was Jacob already doing like crazy things when you met?
So it was that year. It was the year that he did, because I watched you do One Giant Leap for Mankind.
Did you?
I think, or it was right around.
Yeah.
I think so. Or I was definitely at that crag with you when you were talking about doing it.
Yeah.
So it was that same year. Yeah, so that was 7 years ago. I did a student university exchange to England, and that's where Jacob and I met. And then after that year was up, we decided to keep the relationship up, and he came over to Canada.
Yeah.
And
I met Bronwyn like 2 weeks after she learned how to tie a figure of 8.
Right.
So she was like a total beginner, and I kind of like trained her up. Yeah.
Does she also talk to herself while she's climbing? So?
Yeah,
What?
sometimes.
This is how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that first year climbing with Jacob, I think he like decided that it was a good idea to take me up a bunch of like trad multi-pitches and like various things that were like quite difficult for someone who had just learned how to rock climb.
Yeah, I guess I realized that like the way to Bronwyn's heart was like getting her really, really tired and really, really scared on like British sea cliffs and like big multi-pitch routes. Yeah.
There were a lot of like ridiculous epics from that year of just like me
Oh.
somewhere.
Yeah. It was an effective strategy.
You slightly like lost. Actually.
Oh, wait.
Okay, you're back.
There we go.
I think so.
We're gonna try and move a little bit so we get better signal. Let's just move that way, like 10 meters.
10 is that gonna do anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Are we back?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Does it not do anything?
Yeah. It's totally gonna be better.
Okay. I don't see how that would do anything.
Good.
Oh no, we don't see you at all now. You went
Yeah, now we get to see the tree.
another 10 meters.
Okay, that's good. That's
Nice,
yeah, that's
that's
nice,
good, yeah.
nice. That's an amazing cliff.
Yeah, we don't really have like a home anywhere, and so we were in Spain when the coronavirus hit, and so we just came to our friend's land, and we've been kind of isolating on our friend's land in Spain for the past
2 months.
2.5 months now.
Yeah. Looks
How's that been going?
We can see the cliff, but we
Aren't allowed to climb
haven't
it.
been allowed to climb on it. We may or may not be allowed to go climbing now, like the restrictions are easing, but we're still kind of figuring that out.
Yeah.
We're gonna go climb this cliff.
Nice.
The really immaculate looking one in the background, or the
Yeah. That's the one. Yep.
Okay. What is that cliff? By the way?
It's
Marietta.
it's called Narieta. Yeah, we're close to Figals,
We're
Catalonia.
about 20-minute drive from Oliana right now, which was like kind of where we were planning on climbing before
Yeah.
the pandemic before the pandemic erupted.
But you've got Britney Spears now to keep you going. Right?
Oh, Britney Smears.
Pretty smears, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we built a climbing board. It's
Yeah.
actually 48 degrees overhanging,
Wow.
in the barn, in our friend's barn. So we've been climbing on that a lot.
Yeah, which has dramatically improved the lockdown mood.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. We've got our own climbing wall as well, but
Yeah, I saw your guys' climbing wall featured on the on UK Climbing. Very exciting.
The baby one compared to yours, it's only 45 degrees. So.
Oh, pathetic.
Yeah, we
Pathetic.
we actually meant to make ours kind of 45 degrees and then measure it afterwards. It
Yeah,
was
yeah. 45 was the plan.
Yeah, Jacob, what are you playing at? The maths.
Yeah, not very accurate.
So you did infinity. It's impractical math, not
Right.
practical
Yeah,
math.
yeah.
I mean, physics.
for this.
Yeah. So what were we talking about?
Bron.
So
Oh, you came over to Canada.
Oh yeah, yes. Then I came over to Canada. I think I moved to Canada like 4 years ago or something, and we kind of moved to Squamish, where we've been living, which is a pretty good spot.
yeah.
Good rock climbing zone.
Yeah.
High on our list of places that we would like to live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you guys should do it.
Yeah, we'll have to try.
Jacob's now a permanent resident of Canada, so he doesn't
yeah.
have citizenship yet, but we're like working on it. We got married actually a year and a half ago.
We got married so I could get the sweet green card.
And for other reasons.
Yeah.
Put that from the video that's going online.
What's that?
The sweet green card comment. I mean, maybe the Canadian visa authorities won't take too kindly to it.
Right. Oh yeah. That bit's cut from the if this gets uploaded.
No, well, you've already got it.
Oh yeah. I'm already in.
So, anyway, yeah. To get kind of back on topic without like ranting too much. So basically, like on your first year of climbing together, you were already taking on Bron on big adventures. Do you think, I mean, we spoke a bit before about Jacob doing some crazy things. Do you feel like that sort of attitude and approach to doing crazy stuff has rubbed off on you? Or do you think it's like something that was already there? Because I know you did a lot of like kayaking and this kind of thing. Do you think you were already like a latent adventurer, or?
Yeah, I think it was already there, definitely. Yeah, in Canada, I grew up doing a lot of like kind of outdoor adventurous sports. It's just the area I grew up in didn't really have any rock climbing, so I didn't know about rock climbing. But growing up, I did a lot of like long canoe trips and whitewater paddling, and a lot of skiing, and yeah, generally.
Okay, and your
climbing was new, but the adventurous lifestyle was not new.
Yeah, nice.
And in a way, actually, it's kind of the other way around in terms of like
big expeditions.
In terms of the big expeditions, I've like learned a lot from Bron about how to like long time in the wilderness and how to organize like a giant expedition like that. So we did one into the Circle of the Unclimbables and another one into Baffin Island last summer. And like definitely Bronwyn is more experienced than I am at like how to kind of turn something like that into a reality, and like what 6 weeks of food actually looks like, things like that. So yeah.
Great.
That's awesome. Like, I guess we'll get onto the big adventure stuff in a sec. I actually just like ask Bron one more question. So one thing that I saw from like I followed you guys fairly early on from when you were like posting all these wild adventures. And I remember seeing a video of Bron hanging from the Beastmaker 2000 rung, one hand. And like,
in some amazing tie-dye, by the way.
Anyone that's in the chat happens to own a Beastmaker 2000, try just hanging the lower middle rung one-handed, and then tell me if you've got any ligaments left in your fingers afterwards, because it's really fucking hard to do.
Yeah, I've like given up on that as like a lifetime goal, really. Like it's just never gonna happen. I can train my fingers all I want, it's just not gonna happen. And Bron, like, what's crazy is Bron didn't even do any training. Like, it wasn't like she like built up to it. Just like one day she just like walked over to it in the climbing wall and was just like happily dangling
That's insane.
one hand.
Yeah, that was the first time I think I'd used a peacemaker.
Oh my god.
I never tried it. I just wanted to try it.
It's really annoying.
Because
So my thinking is, do you think maybe some of your finger strength came from like paddling? I don't know. Like I'm thinking outside the box a bit, but
Yeah, I don't know. It like surprised me. But yeah, that seems to be one of my like major climbing strengths. Is like finger strength. And I think like also I tend towards like endurance climbing, especially for like any of my more difficult like single pitch climbs have been kind of mega endurance routes. And I think that just relates because if I have really strong fingers, then like each hold I can kind of feels like a bigger hold to me than it might to someone else. So I think that probably is just like actually my main climbing strength.
Yeah.
Is like having really strong fingers.
Well, both of us tend towards the endurance
Yeah,
routes.
you do that too.
Like
as well.
all my hardest routes are like, yeah, like we were saying, like 70, 80 meters long.
Yeah. Or like a kilometer long.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, giant cliffs. Like that.
Like El Cap.
Yeah.
A little bit longer than Malum.
Yeah.
So I think you got to like climbing some pretty hard grades pretty quickly, right, Bron? I mean, like 8A plus within a few years, right?
Yeah, if that one counts. I'd only count the 8A, I think. It was like a soft 8A plus, and then actually 8A that I climbed. It's called Lourdes in El Chorro in Spain. Like 3 years after starting climbing, maybe.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think it was like 3 years after starting climbing.
That's pretty.
And it was like
yeah.
Britney Spears angle with like knee bar rests all the way up, just like as endurance-y as you can do. I think I couldn't boulder more than probably about V3 at the time, but there was no move harder than V3 like on that route because it was just so steep.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
I think I think like famously Dave Graham climbed 8B plus after 2 years or something. So you're like pretty.
That's a very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, still not climbing that. So, but yeah, and then I don't know. Do you want to talk about the big wall stuff or?
Yeah. Shift that thing.
Okay. We have too many screens apparently.
And I have really bad eyesight.
Oh, we've got a couple of people chatting with us. Are we supposed to look?
Oh
at
yeah.
that?
Yeah. So these are actually the guys that we know. So Victor's a guy that we know from where we work, and so is Michelle.
Hi, Victor. Hi, Michelle.
Yeah. Victor's like injured himself on the climbing wall, but so have I, and so is Emma. So.
Oh
Oh no.
yeah, it's definitely like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a messed up elbow too, but not. My elbow was actually already messed up.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the bane of my life. I think over the past like 10 years, I've been injured like definitely more than I've been not injured. But
a lot of small things, like a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think I've kind of just learned that I'm like my body is gonna hurt, and like it's kind of about like figuring out how to work with the various limitations and injuries that I have at the time to like still do things that I want to do.
You're frozen again.
Oh, like I can't crimp now. So just try and climb.
We can't hear you.
Wave your hand.
There we go.
You're back again.
You're back.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, sorry, yeah, it's the phone internet.
Sure.
Yeah.
You were saying?
Yeah, I was just saying that I've kind of like realized that it's more about working with my body to like
Choose goals.
to kind of choose things that I'm able to do given like my current injury status rather than like waiting until I'm not injured. So like quite a lot of the time I've been like, oh, I can't crimp right now, so I'll like try this like ridiculous challenge of like volume, like how much climbing can I do in 24 hours or something. So like going to Yosemite to do things like that. And
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Have you ever like run into like problems doing that? Have you like thought, oh, I'll just do this route because it avoids like my elbow injury or whatever, and then been on it and been like, oh shit, like it's actually like
Yeah. What's funny is I find my like injuries are like so tied to stress. So
okay.
like when I'm like working hard, or if I'm trying a route that I get stressed about, like everything starts hurting. And then if I just like do something that's like relaxing for a while, or like go on a climbing trip, I like quite often my injuries just like fade into the background.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. I
Curious.
guess that's true of life as well, you know, if you're like forcing things and yeah.
Yeah, I had like a 2-year like chronic back problem in like 2013 to 2015, where like I saw like probably like 5 or 6 different physios, and then they all gave me totally different like contradictory advice. And then the last one that I saw said, she looked at me for like an hour and was like, your back's fine, stop worrying about it, start doing the things that you want to do. And I like went to Spain, and then my back was like magically better after like 2 years of it hurting. And so I also stopped writing my PhD around then, so it could have been the sitting at the computer like
Yeah.
for like 12 hours a
Not
day.
all placebo.
So yeah,
but-
combination of those two things.
Cool.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk big walls.
Yeah, that's what
Oh yeah, right. So I guess it was like the logical conclusion of my like taking Bronwyn on like big scary routes as like a dating strategy was like a year and a half into knowing each other. I was like, yeah, we should go to Yosemite. And so we went to Yosemite, and then just had this like epic trip where we were like just total Gumbies, and like everything that could go wrong like did go wrong.
Oh, please tell us about some of those things.
So 1.5 years after you started climbing then, Bron?
Yes.
Yeah.
You climb big walls.
Yes.
Yeah. And so like neither of us had ever climbed any big walls before.
And neither of us had climbed in North America before. Like you
Right,
didn't
yeah.
really know how to climb granite either.
Right, yeah. And so Bron had been doing her like university finals, and I was like, I'm gonna learn how to big wall. So I was like teaching myself how to big wall from YouTube videos, like setting up anchors in Bron's house while she was like writing her university final exams. And then we just like, okay, I guess we'll give it a go. And we like showed up in Yosemite with like no car and like no clue of like really what we were doing.
Yeah.
And basically, yeah, had a series of epics for a month.
And then a series of epics for 3 weeks. And then in the last week, we like climbed the nose and it went really well.
Right. We sort of figured out. But before that, we climbed the easiest big wall in the world, which took us, it's 11 pitches, the south face of Washington Column, and it took us 4 days. and, and had like many tears and epics and tangles.
It took us 1 day to climb one pitch. And like,
Yeah.
the pitch is not because it was hard aid climbing, like it was like a bolt ladder basically.
Yeah.
We just got so many tangles.
What happened? Why did it take 4 days?
Well, because the hauling was really difficult. The bag would get stuck.
Well,
a lot,
it took
and
us a day to find the route.
Oh, we got really lost on the approach.
We were just like stumbling around in this scree slope, like
Tell us
where
this.
is it? And then yeah, and then we climbed 3 pitches and kind of set up camp on this ledge, and then some like Yosemite hippie like dirtbags showed up on the ledge too and had a giant
Oh,
party.
this is actually kind of funny.
uh,
They hauled up like a whole bag full of beer and like liquors and like a feast. And
You're frozen again.
Yeah.
and so that probably slowed us down. Oh, back.
Yeah, your audio. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so that probably slowed us down a little bit too.
Oops.
And then, oh yeah, and then what happened? Tell them about the core roof.
Yeah, I think the core roof is like maybe the crux of the route. It's like a bolt ladder out a roof, but like it's still like thinking about it now, it's like quite an easy pitch. I think, did I try and lead it first?
Yep.
I tried to lead it, and then like burst into tears and like couldn't get over the roof, and then came down, and then like Jacob tried to lead it, then he managed to lead it, and then I tried to second it, and then I burst into tears again trying to second it, and then like came down again, and then Jacob like ended up seconding it and cleaning it, and then by the time all that was over, like it was dark.
It's very reassuring to hear that you like were like bursting into tears in these routes, because you know, like when I look at you now and like all the stuff, the crazy stuff that you're doing, I'm like, oh man, these guys must have just like cruised through all these experiences.
Yeah.
No, you have to start at the bottom. Learn it all.
And like, to be fair, we definitely both still burst into tears on routes, so it's really like not that much has changed.
It's stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
You know how to deal with it.
And so so at the end of that trip, I guess we like managed to figure our stuff out, and we climbed the nose. And then I actually climbed the nose again, but I like took a giant fall and like hit a ledge, and then I like couldn't walk for a month. So it was like not the best first trip to Yosemite.
We did learn how to big wall.
Yeah.
So, in terms, I mean, a lot of the people that are watching, I personally don't know anything about big wall climbing, and I certainly don't know anything about aid climbing. Like, what is it like to actually climb the nose then, in terms of the aid pitches? Because I always get the impression it's such a trade route, it must be really easy, right? You're just like slotting in gear into like really well-worn slots, or is it like, are there any bits that feel a bit scary?
I think the thing about like when you first look at something like the nose, like each individual pitch, if it were a single pitch, wouldn't necessarily be that challenging to just get up, like any means possible, like not free climbing, but just getting up the pitch. But it's just like the combination of doing 32 of those stacked on top of each other with the like complications of hauling all of your food and all of your water and all of your camping stuff up with you. And so like you have multiple ropes, you have multiple systems. Usually climbing the nose, it's quite often someone's first time like using these sorts of systems.
Yeah.
And like there's like large traversing sections, kind of pendulums that and like every pitch is like has unique parts of it, so I think it's just like a compilation of all of that.
I really wouldn't say I was like, I mean, I definitely wasn't free climbing, but I also wouldn't say I was really aid climbing, because aid climbing sounds like you kind of know what you're doing with all the ladders and stuff. I was kind of more like putting in cams and then like doing pull-ups on them, and then like putting in another cam and then like doing a pull-up on it.
If we climbed the nose now, it would look differently.
Yeah. I've like learned a few. There's like lots of things you can do to make it really efficient if you know how. But if you kind of like don't know how, you're just like doing pull-ups on cams.
Then essentially the best preparation for the nose, if you're going to make the first attempt on it, is to try and do like 2,000 pull-ups in spaces. 2,000
pull-ups, yeah. Yeah, you got it.
Or no, what we did actually, what we did is went to a local crag that was like really short, like 15 meters or something. And then we each took turns like setting up a haul system and hauling like. So I set up a haul system, and then Jacob got like inside the haul bag, and then I hauled him up the cliff, and then we like swapped, and then I got in the haul bag, and he like hauled me up the cliff. And that was like our practice at like the home crag before we went.
Much harder for Bronwyn. I'm like much bigger. Bron had to like do some 3-to-1 shenanigans.
How long after climbing the nose for the first time did you set your eyes on doing freerider?
Well, I actually set my eyes on doing freerider that first trip. I like was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just go climb freerider, and then we like got there and tried freerider on our first day in Yosemite.
I just tried to scope the bottom few
pitches.
We
tried to climb the first like 10 pitches, and then you can just like wrap off. And like I like was like power screaming on like the 5/8 fist cracks, and then like we bailed off of like the 5th pitch, I think.
It's too hard.
Yeah, this is too hard. So it was kind of in my mind from the word go, but I just like had a massive reality check of like, oh wait, I actually can't do this.
Here, I'll just give like a bit of context for anyone watching. So freeriders, it's like a 7C plus in European money, but I guess that probably doesn't do justice giving it a grade. But it's also made very famous in the film.
It's a kilometer tall 7.
Yes, it's 1 kilometer high. Yeah, and climbing. It's the easiest way up El Cap, free, I think, right?
Yeah, free climbing.
Yeah, it's the one that Alex Honnold soloed.
in
Yeah.
free solo.
Yeah.
So if you've seen free solo, then you know exactly what the free rider route is like, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is a really bad idea, by the way.
soloing.
Really bad idea. I think it's like people don't realize how bad an idea it actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some like really like insecure hard climbing on that route.
Yeah.
Very high up the ground.
But yeah, so then I guess it was like a year later that we went back to Yosemite and decided we were gonna try to climb freerider, and then that time we did with our friend Chris, whose house we're staying at right now, in Spain. We like spent 6 days on the wall. That's the time we made a film. We like hold an inflatable shark behind us.
Yeah.
There's like a weird thing with us and like inflatables. Like I don't know like how that came about.
Well,
really.
the shark was the first.
No, it
What?
started because it started with me and Ian had the world's first Hawaiian portaledge party.
Yeah. The one in the Verdon Gorge on the
In the Verdon Gorge, that's right, yeah.
Oh, that would be really good to show a picture of that.
That would be really good to show a picture
Instagram?
of that. Instagram.
You could go into Instagram.
Oh yeah.
All right, should we? I think that this is probably well worth showing a photo of. If someone hasn't seen this.
The start of the inflatables.
Would it be on your?
It is on my Instagram.
You want to talk to them and say what it is while I find it?
Yeah. So I guess it started because we were going to go try climb this route in the Verdon Gorge, but it was going to be really, really hot on the portaledge because we were trying to climb it in August, which is like a bad time to climb in the Verdon. And the wall came into the sun. The wall was in the sun until like 3 p.m. So we knew we were just going to be sitting in the sun on the wall until 3 p.m. until we could go climbing. So we're like, oh, what are we going to do? Just sitting in the sun all this time. So we're like, oh, we'll get an umbrella to sit under to like shade ourselves. And then we can like, it will be like we're on the beach. Yeah. And then we were like, oh, it'll be kind of like we're in Hawaii. And then we're like, oh, well, we should get like a palm tree and cocktail glasses and a hula skirt. And it kind of just snowballed.
Where's it?
And so.
Oh, there it is.
Oh yeah, can we?
So I think that you have to go back to the Zoom chat, and then we press. So can I share a screen now?
Yeah, try.
Share screen. I want to show that photo. Share.
Oh great.
There.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I think that was the start of the inflatables, but then we moved on to climbing freerider with the shark.
Yeah.
So I'll stop the share there. Let's get that. We definitely have that photo. Let's share the screen here. Should we find it?
You could just share that one.
That photo?
Yeah.
Okay. Share.
Great.
Oh, wait. Wait, that's actually a photo from our expedition this summer. So that's
the logical conclusion of the inflatable.
Yeah. First to last. The one of the shark though. So this is when we that's when we climbed the shark. Climbed El Cap with the shark.
And this is Chris and Bronwyn and me and the shark.
June 2015, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when Jacob and Chris both free climbed freerider.
How do we find them again?
Who?
How do we find the people that we're talking to?
You want me to stop the share?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi.
You'll have all your inflatables and the shark and everything. You still
Do we keep them all?
The shark is in my dad's house, I think, in London. But he's going through a rough patch right now.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't stay inflated anymore.
But
didn't stay inflated over the course of that wall.
Yeah, he's gonna pull through though.
Granite is pretty like rough on.
Yeah.
Like
he's gonna,
shark.
Yeah, he's gonna pull through.
And then the inflatable flamingo, that was from. We can get into this later, but we brought that to Baffin Island on an expedition this summer. And then at the end, we ended in a small Inuit community, and we gave the flamingo to some children there.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
You guys are frozen again.
definitely not.
Let's wait.
There we go.
Okay. Hey. So do you think this this? I mean, a lot of climbing a lot of the time can feel pretty serious. Do you think like taking these inflatables really lightens the mood, or do you think at some point it kind of like, why the fuck did we bring the fucking tribe?
Definitely a bit of both. I think like I'm just like a huge fan of like I find like absurd stuff really funny.
Yeah.
So just like it's just like a really absurd idea, like bringing inflatables to like places where you really wouldn't expect to have an inflatable. And so I think that like idea kind of like captured my imagination and was like, oh, it would be hilarious to be like riding a shark like up El Cap. And so that's where it started. And then yeah, I think it is important to kind of keep things lighthearted, because it's quite easy on like the side of a big cliff to get like a bit spooked. And it's nice to like have
and stressed and like,
stressed, and it's exhausting. And I think that like especially that video that we made of us climbing Freerider with the shark like does a kind of bad job of like showing how stressful it is and like how hard it is. And it just looks like we're just having like the best time with this inflatable, and like it's all like laughter all the time. So I feel a bit bad sometimes of like selling people big wall climbing as being like this awesome, super fun activity, and then it actually like kind of sucks. Like really painful and scary, and you're like, why the fuck do I have this shark? Oh, I'm not supposed to swear. I don't know.
You already started.
So yeah, it's a bit of both.
It's type 2 fun, right?
Yeah, type
It's
2.
always type 2 fun, and there's like moments of type 1 fun like interspersed with other things.
And then occasional like type 3. Yeah.
What is type 3 fun?
Type 3 is just when it's actually just not fun. Yeah. So type 2 fun is like fun afterwards. Type 1 is fun at the time, like ping pong. Type 2 fun is fun afterwards. And then type 3 fun is just like, it was just a bad idea.
So like on Baffin Island this summer, we had a climb that we ended up like starting up, and then it was like quite scary, and we had like a close call and like bailed off the mountain, and then like didn't climb that mountain, and that would qualify as like a not fun
type 3
attempt. Yeah. Type 3 fun. That was just not fun at all.
Yeah. But usually big wall climbing is somewhere on a spectrum between kind of like
1 and 2.
average of about 2, sometimes like pushing towards the 3, and sometimes like back towards the 1, you know.
What?
But
you're selling it so badly now.
It's funny because in my wedding vows, I made a promise to Emma that I would always introduce always take her for like type 2 fun adventures. So
oh, nice.
Big wall climbing. I didn't say anything about type 3, but
No, I didn't know about type 3 until now, so now I'm kind of
right. Yeah. So like we at Baffin Island this summer, we like ended up hiking in with like insanely heavy bags. Like I think our bags were like 50 kilograms or something.
And it was like
which was
40 kilometers.
Yeah, 40
uphill,
kilometers with 50 kilogram bags, which was insane. And like 1 kilogram of that was the inflatable flamingo. And I was just like, God damn it.
But it was so worth it.
Yeah. Ultimately, it was worth it. Yeah.
It was the alpine flamingo.
Yeah. But then I guess like, so from Yosemite, after that trip in 2015, Yosemite kind of like stole both our hearts, and we just like went back like every season as much as we could. And like,
yeah, so like Yosemite is good. It's in California, so the climbing season is spring and autumn. And so we were like, there was a few years where we were in the valley every spring and every fall.
Yeah. And it's just one of those places where there's like an endless progression of cool things to do. So like you do this like one climb that was really hard, and like it's fun pushing yourself, you know, and you learn all these things about like what you can do when you're like really tired and like I've like learned a bunch of stuff about how hard I can actually try through climbing in Yosemite. But like you do one of those climbs, and then as soon as you've done one, you're like, oh, there's these like 10 others that would be like just a little bit harder. And then like you could choose one of them, and then there's like another 10 that like just that next step up. And so it's kind of like really addictive, like that kind of like progression in the valley, like whatever level you're at too, you can.
Scheiße, frozen.
Which is cool.
Do you guys think that Squamish has quite a similar progression then, or?
Yeah, Squamish is basically like the perfect training ground for Yosemite.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it's like
also
the cliffs are like the Chief in Squamish, the main cliff is about half the size to a third of the size of El Cap.
Yeah. Half. It's probably half.
Yeah, half of the tallest. Yeah.
But yeah, it's similar. There's kind of like this endless progression of like slightly harder routes, and but Squamish is just a way better place to live. Actually, being in Yosemite Valley like kind of sucks. It's really awesome as soon as you get like out of the valley onto the sides, but like the actual center of the valley is like just like it's
very
kind of like
busy.
It's like a theme park.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
That's sad.
Yeah. It's so like Squamish is actually a town with like a community and stuff, so it's a nice place to live. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We saw you there when we were there actually in 2000.
We didn't, not you, Bron, but
We saw,
Jacob.
yeah, we saw you, Jacob.
You saw me? Did I see you?
Yeah, actually, you just given a talk, and I can't remember what. Yeah.
You were in a climbing wall somewhere. Yeah, gave a talk.
Was that ground up? Was that a ground up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The climbing gym in Squamish.
Yeah. So that would have been like summer 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That summer I was away. That summer I guided this like 50-day northern river trip in north of Canada all summer that year.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there.
You keep saying that. Yeah. Cool. And you were with like a bunch of 18-year-olds or something?
Yeah. Bronwyn was.
I was guiding myself and my co-guide. You were. Yeah, myself and my co-guide, and then there were 10 18-year-olds on the trip. We took them on this like whitewater river journey across the huge distance in northern Canada for 2 months.
But when it comes to like whitewater rafting, then I guess you're showing Jacob what to do.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's been really cool about our sort of 2 biggest expeditions we've done together in the past few years, is that we've like found huge climbing, like remote climbing destinations that have some sort of whitewater river access to the destinations, and then combine the sort of like multi-sport adventure expedition.
Yeah. And what I've really enjoyed about that is like often like climbing trips can feel like you just like drop into like this area, and it's almost like a bubble. You just like appear in this bubble, like you fly in or whatever, and then or you drive there, and then you like try to climb this thing, and then you just like disappear again. Whereas doing these kind of multi-sport like paddling climbing expeditions, I've like you get a much better sense of like the landscape, and it's much more of a journey, which I really enjoy.
I guess it's way more remote as well. Like you don't really.
You can do stuff that's way more remote, but also
like,
you
could be just as remote with like a helicopter or a plane flight.
Okay.
Yeah, but you get a feeling for the remoteness.
Yeah.
Because you spend all this time like journeying through the landscape to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
It just I don't know. It's really changed my. Yeah, I don't know, I guess it's like changed my life in terms of like doing these epic journeys.
That's really cool.
So we obviously, we have a feeling for, as climbers, we have a feeling for how scary it can be climbing. Like I'm very much aware of where the floor is and whatever, but I don't have an idea for how scary it can be whitewater rafting or going into like one of these like big adventures where you're traveling.
Absolutely terrifying. Is the answer to that? Because it's all happening way faster.
I think that Jacob had
timing. You can like hold on and kind of like look around and think about your life choices and all that. Whitewater rafting, there's no time for any of that. It's just all happening right now. And in my case, Bronwyn's in the back like steering, and I'm just in the front like going down these huge waves.
Okay, but I think that I kind of had a bit of payback and like took Jacob on a similar journey into introduction to whitewater paddling, like in the same fashion that he introduced me to rock climbing and multi-pitch rock climbing. So I think we
Definitely.
dove in pretty deep quickly. So he had a similar experience.
Have you ever had any close calls white water rafting then, or any of these kayak trips? I mean, do you ever feel like you're getting close to?
So I guess this is a good time to talk about in 3.5 years ago now, I guess almost 4 years ago, we went into the Cirque of the Unclimbables in northern Canada.
Let's bring up this. We're sharing. We're screen sharing.
And this was a trip with Bronwyn's brother and dad, and also two of Bronwyn's earliest childhood friends. And